My name is Ed Fang, your host for the Football Analytics Show. This is a special episode. It was a live podcast at Bet Bash. I had the honor of talking with Mike Craig, a longtime professional sports bettor. I really enjoyed this conversation because even though I've known Mike for a long time, I learned some things during this conversation. Next week, I will be launching the 2025 preview series. This is a daily series of podcasts to get you ready for football season. It will run for the next 2 weeks. Look for that in this podcast feed. All right, Mike, I want to get into your story as a pro bettor, or maybe your path towards a pro and the different things that you've had to do. Let's start with the early years. How did you get started in this? How did you balance it with the job that you were working? And I guess there was an early time when you were working with Raz as well.
Yeah, that came a little later. I guess I graduated college in 2001. I had a job in water and wastewater engineering. It was a pretty easy job. So I wasn't originating back then either. It was mostly just reading things, and Dr. Bob back then was way ahead of the game. So it was buying his service and just betting at $50 to $100 a game. It was pretty easy. Having a job at that point didn't really matter. It wasn't worth. I wasn't making enough money to think about leaving my job at that point, and I didn't know how to originate. So through the years, though, I read everything Dr. Bob did, and he used to give away a lot of information, which I think he probably regrets a bit at this point.
I don't know. I feel like he's still giving away information.
Yeah. He used to do simulated box scores that showed all his projections for yardage and plays and everything. So just seeing that gave you an idea of what he was doing. And I didn't start originating college football until 2011. So I really didn't start originating until I discovered Ken Palm. And that was probably in like 2008, and that led me to read Dean Oliver Basketball on Paper, and from there, that's when I started to model WNBA, just simple adjusted pace and efficiency models, and from there, that led me to be hired by Right Angle Sports. I was posting stuff on a forum called the RX, and I get the numbers I was putting up for college basketball were pretty accurate at that point, and then I started 1 year in WNBA at the RX. I only posted plays 1 year, I think, there, but I started like 19-2 or something like that. So that kind of got me noticed by a lot of people on there. And Ed
so just real quick, in college basketball, are you doing sides or totals or both?
I was just posting total projections. I wasn't giving plays out. I was just posting like projections. I was just manipulating Ken Palm math a little bit to make it more, I guess, actionable from a gambling standpoint.
So what?
I mean, the main thing was the lower end totals he was too low, and the higher end totals he was too high, which is going to be a typical problem with math like that. So basically, I was kind of pushing everything more towards the average at the outlier, higher and lower. That's really all I was doing with math with Ken Palm. I was just kind of
scaling
fixing it. Scaling it. I mean, that's the perfect way to say it. Scaling it, and then making some. And I had knowledge of the market, so in terms of just closing line value and closing lines. So just trying to align with make Ken Palm kind of align with the closing numbers a little more than it was at the time, and then that kind of led me into basketball on paper.
So wait, why, if Ken Palm's projecting a low total, the market should be higher? Why?
If the closing line was 123, his projection might be 118 or 119.
Just because of pace or because of efficiency?
No, I think just when you do a projection with, you might have two slow teams, but two slow teams can only play so slow. So I think the tempos were being projected too slow. And then on the high end, same thing. You can only play so fast. So when you get two really fast teams, you're not gonna see 90 tempo. Well, I mean, back then I don't even remember what it was, but 67-ish maybe. I don't know. So if you had two teams in the 75 range, those tended to be skewed too high at Ken Palm at that time.
That makes a ton of sense. So you're completely believing in his efficiency, right? Offensive and defensive efficiency. And then it's just the pace factor that wasn't.
I was still making adjustments on the efficiencies too, because again, if I have a team that's 120 efficiency on offense playing a 120 defensive efficiency, I'm not expecting if the average is 100, I'm not expecting 140. Like, that has to scale down as well.
Oh, okay. So like really good offense versus really bad defense.
Again, kind of the same thing. You can only play so fast, only play so slow. You can't average more than, I mean, I guess technically you could, but like you can't really average, look at it as an extreme, like you can't really average more than 2 points per possession in basketball. I mean, you could with a 3-pointer, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
right. You're going to be somewhere near the 1 point per possession range.
Yes.
This, I mean, I presume you're still kind of doing these types of things, right? So sorry. While Mike thinks about that, well, actually, we'll get to it. Back then, you're originating now because you're looking at Ken Palm. You're making these adjustments. You're doing WNBA, and I presume it's kind of similar.
WNBA, I was just doing everything from scratch, but yeah, I just had box score data. I didn't do anything player level back then. I wouldn't know how to. I can't do that from. I don't have the computer skills to do that now. So, yeah, it was just pace and efficiency, and same kind of thing. I basically just adjusted every team's. Just gave them a game score on offense, a game score on defense, a game score on pace, and then took the medians, all those, and then put it together in a final projection. And then I made several models. And they were all basically the same, but one would use the whole season, one would use averages, one would use medians, one would look at the last 7 games and throw out the worst and the best game, and look at the last 12 games, throw out the best and the worst. And I kind of had a last 5 and a last 10 model, and then kind of throw all that together to make a final projection, and I would just bet based upon that. And follow the injuries and everything. It's a little different now. They play a longer season. So there's more sit-outs now. Back then, like, they pretty much played every game, and there wasn't many injuries or anything. So I didn't really have to worry about that too much.
That does make life
does, yeah.
Much easier.
It was a nice thing to start with because it was only 12 teams. So I didn't want to start with something NBA 30 teams. That's kind of why I chose WNBA. I figured I didn't know if it was going to work or not. So, with 12 teams, I'm like, this probably won't take too long. And it didn't take that long. So it's kind of why I chose WNBA, though, just the size of the league.
Mike, I've known a lot of your work, and so I don't like it when you say up here like you don't have the analytics chops to do stuff. I know you've been actually making type of least squares adjustments that Ken Palm does for a long time, right? In college football and those sorts of things. So
yeah, but with college football, I actually didn't originate that until I got hired at Right Angle. I started in November of 2009, so I only did hoops with them that first year. And then after the first year, they asked me to stay on, and they said, can you try to work on college football math? And it wasn't very good that first year. They didn't use much of my stuff in 2011 in college football, but by 2012, I had worked on it enough that 2012 I actually, to that point, was the best year I ever had gambling. And it was mostly college football wins that year. So I was able to figure it out, but it did take me some trial and error, I guess you'd say, to figure out what I was doing with college football modeling.
And that was spreads or totals?
Or both. Just one projection that would spit out a spread and a total. It was better with totals for sure. But it almost always projected the line moves properly. So it was pretty solid. Back then there was now there's 2-way action. It feels like on every game. So no game gets too out of whack. But back then, you'd open at 51 and the line would be 56, 3 days later. So it's a lot more. And now I don't feel like you get that much run. The openers are much better too, of course. So that's really the biggest reason.
Yeah, I feel like you would only see that big a change in a college football total maybe week 1. And something that they put out a month before.
Yeah, these days it would be, even now, with coaching changes, they do a lot better. But there's been games. There's been games where I feel like week one, and not anymore, but maybe 10 points off, like in the mid 2010s. I feel like that would happen here and there. I feel like even later in the season you would get 5-point moves on totals, but yeah, you just don't see that very often now. The openers are too good, and if they're not, they get pushed into, they get bet earlier too. There's just more smart people involved that are trying to build their bankroll, and you get angry. I don't want to say you get angry, but it's frustrating to watch a line disappear that you want to bet into. But I mean that's what I did when I was growing my bankroll, so I can't complain.
Excellent. So for the audience, we're going to use this system up here for questions and answers. So I'm going to use, if you guys want to do that, great. We're happy to get some Q&A. But I'll use that as a way to figure out if you guys have questions. So please feel free to do that. Mike, getting back to what you were saying, you were doing college football in 2012. Raz asked you to do that, but then was it a combination of using part of that for the service and then part of that you're betting on your own?
Yeah, they weren't. I would submit plays to them, but I was still betting. If I wanted to bet something that they, I would wait to see what they wanted to release. I wasn't like betting ahead of releases or anything. But a lot of times, it was only my second year doing things there, and they only ran the service like in college football. They typically only run the service until like mid-October, because then we would focus on college basketball. So usually the service was only 6 or 7 weeks. So I had the rest of the year after that to bet it on my own. And then even in the first 6 and 7 weeks, since I didn't really have any record of winning in college football with them, because I was still like, trial and error and trying to figure things out the previous year. So a lot of my stuff that year wasn't going to be on the service anyways, because I hadn't shown enough, I think, that my opinion was as valued as Mike or Ed's at the time.
Sure, but that also means you're not betting it on your own those first 6 or 7.
I would bet if they didn't want to bet what I had, I would just bet it on my own. Okay. Yeah. And it was a good year. That year, I also discovered that year that in terms of scoring distribution, going through the data while I was building the models out, they weren't properly distributing first half and second half scoring on high spread games. So like if you had a game that was, nowadays if you have a game that's Alabama minus 30 and 55, 56, like call it 55, 56, something like that. Like that first half total, back then the first half total would be 27.5, 28.
Which is
and
crazy,
right? It should be like 31.5. So there's enormous edges, and I figured that out, and so I was just blindly betting any game like that, and it was like it hit like 70% that year or something. I made a criteria of like ratio of first half spread to first half total, and if it exceeded, I want to say it was like 57%. 55%, something like that. I would just bet the first half over blindly. And it was amazing that year. And then they figured that out, like, I don't remember if they figured it out the next year. I feel like I got a couple years out of it, but that first year that I figured it out, it was incredible from betting. It like never, it felt, I don't think I had a losing week doing it. And at the beginning of the year, you have more of those games because you've got the non-conference. Once you get into conference play, the teams are typically more evenly matched. So it's more of an early season thing.
Yeah, and let's just be clear. You put a bigger total in the first half because you have a huge favorite. There tends to be more points in the first half while it's maybe competitive.
Yeah.
Second half, there's a huge lead, not as many points being scored.
More running plays, less
plays.
Less plays overall typically because one team's just trying to run out the clock, yeah.
Excellent. When, at some point you quit the waste management job, when was...
Oh, yeah, so I worked from 2001 to 2005 at one place, and my wife had a kid in 2005, our first kid, and she quit working, so I actually took another job at a different, it was more a wastewater company, so I was working in wastewater traveling a lot, starting up wastewater treatment plants. My company did like nitrogen removal for wastewater, so I know a lot about that. Denitrification,
Chemical engineering.
But I didn't quit when I started at RAS. I ended up going part time in 2011, and then I quit fully in, I want to say, the end of 2011, something like that. And then, yeah, I've had one other job since then, so real job. But I went back to work in 2014, and late 2014 to the company I started with out of college. Yeah, so.
Okay.
So I had like 3 years of not working, like late 2011 to 2014 to late 2014, and then I quit that again in 2022.
Right. So I kind of think of, these various stages, like, when you went back to the job the second time in 2014, that was kind of like the middle years, right? Because we used to see each other like every year at the Sloan conference.
So yeah, like 2012 was my best year ever at the time, and 2013 was pretty good too. So people say like, oh, why'd you go back to work if you had 2 great years? And the answer is I couldn't. I wanted to like buy a bigger house and for my family, and I also wanted to like invest in other things. And you can't really get a loan when your sole income is from gambling. So a lot of the reason I went back was to be able to invest some of the money I made the previous few years. Because even if you show even if on your tax return you show
Right.
a good income, they would rather see a W-2 with $60,000 than I've made X hundred thousand the last few years gambling. So yeah,
Which is crazy.
I get it, but it's,
No, I don't.
It's
I don't
kind of
get
wild.
it.
I don't know. And I had fully paid off my first house too, so you have all this equity, but they don't look at that in the bank formula for loaning money or lending money.
So what is it like effectively having 2 jobs, a full-time W-2 job, and then being essentially a pro like you were from 2014 to 22?
So I think where it got difficult is I always had easy jobs. So like I never had to work like 40 hours a week. So I could do my job. When I went back in 2014, I went back to the same company I started with. So one of my best friends was running the company, and one of my other friends was my boss. And I knew the position because I had worked it before. I knew I was only going to be working 10 to 15 hours a week, so I knew I'd have plenty of time. That was part of the reason I went back too. I knew it was an easy job.
Right.
So you get benefits and everything, and the ability to actually invest money that you've made because you have a W-2 now. And then I knew it was going to be easy. And where I got into trouble, I didn't get into trouble, but where it became more difficult is I got a promotion in like 2018, and I had never had like a job where you actually had to work 40 hours a week, like a real job. And now I have this job where it's truly a 40-hour a week stressful job. And that's when I kind of had a little bit of burnout in betting in like the 2018-19 range. And I attribute part of it to the stress from having an actual difficult, stressful job. So,
yeah, no, this is what I wanted to get into, right? Because 40 hours a week, you get the promotion. But then in the middle of college basketball season, November, December, that you're putting a lot of time in, right? Like you have to.
Yeah, and that's why when you have an easy job, you can just kind of work on that stuff during your workday, as long as you don't, it's not that I never had a 40-hour work week, but there was a lot of weeks where I had a lot of free time. So yeah, you're just sitting in your cubicle and reading articles and building spreadsheets and things like that. So yeah, I think that's where I think like around 2018-19 too, I'd burnt through like a lot of I was still doing all paper heads. I just had credit accounts throughout the country, and a lot of the guys had run through most of their outs in their areas. So I didn't really have a good structure for getting down either at that point. I look back and I also tell myself, like, I knew a lot of people from, like, we used to always go to MIT Sloan. I knew a lot of people. I don't know why I didn't call and try to leverage some of the contacts I made through the years to be able to bet more easily. But yeah, I think I just didn't, and I think just the combination of having the stressful job, being harder to get down, and then not having as much time to work on things because of the job, I just kind of got burnt out in that year. And then legalization came, and the problems were solved. Because at the beginning of legalization, I mean, we see all the things now with DraftKings cutting you off after 5 bets, and I mean, all of them, pretty much everywhere we have in PA. If you're showing closing line value and betting smaller markets, you're going to get shut off in a week, or not shut off, but limited to less than $50 or so.
Shut off.
Back then when they would let you bet pretty much anything. They didn't really have limits. It was just like, yeah, you have an account here, and if you have money, if you front the money, you can bet it. So, I mean, I remember betting like 4,000 on an MLS game without a review. Like, I can't even imagine like anybody taking any of these apps taking a $4,000 bet on MLS at this point. So,
is anyone taking $4,000?
BetOnline does. BetOnline takes on game day, not before game day, but BetOnline takes 5 in MLS, side and total, and Penny, I don't know, is typically in the 3 range. Chris is usually 2 or 3 in Chris sides, and probably about the same in totals. I'm not positive on that front.
All right, so I feel like the third aspect of your career is better is when you quit the job again in 2022, and now you are on your own as a pro. Let's focus on the work that you're doing now in college basketball. Tell us about your group and how you guys work together.
Well, in 2022, I didn't leave RAS, Right Angle Sports, on great terms when I left there in 2013, but I did meet back up with them here in 2022. That was the Final Four weekend. It wasn't in August back then, the first one out here. So I met up with them, and I ended up getting rehired with them for 2 seasons, and then we parted ways again on good terms this time. At the end of I guess that would have been April of 2024. I had, for people that know Telemachus model, Taylor, when he was kind of coming, I don't want to say coming up, when he was posting on BetStamp, I knew his work was good. So, and then he did his first appearance on Circles Off. So I actually messaged him on Twitter, and we kind of went back and forth, had some phone conversations, and we're friendly with each other. So, after the season, after I knew I wasn't going to be back with Raz, I called him and I asked him. He had done another appearance on Circles Off where he kind of alluded to, we did pretty well, but from a life work balance perspective, it was pretty miserable. So I said, keep me in mind if you guys are looking to add anyone, and I think I could help you out, because very math based, and I at this point, I used to be more math based. At this point, I would say I do like subjectiveness more from an analytical frame of mind, I would say.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, right? Because you told us about how you were quantitative with it at first. Why the change over the last 5 years?
So Right Angle is more an informational thing, and that's why I was hired there in 2009, because my math was solid. But I kind of saw how they were doing things informationally, and searching for articles about coaches' quotes and things like that. And I just think as the market and the math got sharper, the openers got sharper through the years, and they always get sharper. So every year my math was probably showing less of an edge. So it just made more sense for me to look at that end a little more as well. So I learned a lot from those guys, just watching what they did, and just I looked for the same type of things they did. But then I was trying to look at like matchup type stuff, and kind of like how do teams play? How does a team play? When they play a slow team or a fast team, or when they just like looking at teams that varied. I did like a pace dictation thing. So like I remember TCU one year, like they were an average tempo team, but when they played a fast team, they played fast. When they played a slow team, they played slow. So it's just like an auto bet, because the math was just taking 50-50 splits, or
Right.
the total, the market total was just like, okay, they're this, the other team's this, but they would always skew towards up or down. So just trying to find patterns like that and know each team individually and how the style of play they prefer and the style of play they enact when they play. I was always looking for extremes because, like, if everything's average, everything's easy to make a number for, right? So,
Right.
and there's so many teams. I would like look at the extreme teams just for most of my bets.
Would it be fair to say that the market started converging more on the quantitative bettors, and you kind of had to do something a little bit different?
Yeah, I would say that's fair to say. I mean, there's a lot of like now. I think things progress a lot quicker, and the edges get taken away more rapidly now than they used to. But still, yeah, I thought it made sense for me to move towards the subjectiveness and the matchup based stuff, and it worked. It's still mostly what I do now. I do pay. I don't have the computer skills to do I know the math. I just don't have the computer skills to program or anything. So I actually pay somebody to give me data in a format that I can manipulate it and use. And I get more detailed data. I get player level stuff. So I do that now as well.
In which sports?
Just college basketball.
Oh, okay.
College football, I pay the same guy to do data. He actually runs a lot of some of the stuff that I do. But yeah, it's just there's a few unique things in there that I don't really want to say, but like just things that I think are more important than maybe other people do. So I had him like highlight that kind of stuff in the printouts he gives me.
So you're working with Taylor, who's very mathematical. When you're working with him, like it's a little bit more qualitative. Like how does a conversation go on a college basketball day?
I mean, his math is so high level. I don't really even bother doing that much math anymore. I'm more, and I shouldn't say that but I know my math can't be better than his. But I want to be independent, and they're gonna bet based on his projections. But then before I look at his projections, I go in and say what I like, and then my projections get melded into his number, and then whatever that spits out, that's what we're gonna bet if the edge is large enough.
What do you mean they get melded in with his?
They just get regressed into his math. I say what I think the number should be. So let's say we bet. Let's say we would bet a side if it's off by 2.5 points. Let's say that.
Okay.
And then let's say he shows the number at 2, or I'm sorry, let's say the number is 2. We want to bet a 2.5 point edge.
Mm-hmm.
So we would bet plus 4.5. Wait, I'm confusing myself here. So
all right, so it's minus 2.
Let's say the market's 5. We're gonna bet minus 5 if he says his price is 7.5.
Right.
But let's say his price is 7. If I come in and say, well, I think it should be 7 also, we're still going to bet that. So it's just putting, I mean, basically ensemble model, right? Like you're taking 2 and we both think it's a small edge. So since we both think that, we're going to play it. We're going to say the overall edge is higher than what his math says.
So the spread is 5. His model says 8. And you say 6.
Yeah, we would bet that.
Okay, so you're putting a little bit more weight into the
math,
model.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure,
okay.
for sure. Which it should be. And I don't adjust every game. I don't give him a number for every game. Just games I have an opinion on. I put it in a sheet and it regresses into his number, and then we get an overall projection. That's what we bet based upon.
Fascinating. Mike, what do you think about pick sellers?
I'm not. I know it's. I guess it's the cool thing to do to hate pick sellers now. I don't hate it. I think. Of course, Right Angle Sports. I work for them. I work for Sports Insights. Help them sell picks. I don't like I don't think college basketball in 2025 is conducive to a service. I just don't think. I don't think you keep accounts. Let me rephrase that. If a service is going to win, it's going to move the line, right? So I don't think you can have a service in college basketball these days because you're never going to be able to sustain the accounts day over day if it's winning and the line's moving. So that's kind of my issue with a college basketball service in 2025, 2026. In general, I mean, most of the dub club people and Winnable and all these guys, almost all of them lose, and almost all of their sales is based upon marketing. I don't like the slimy marketing, but at the same time, people are buying it, and you're responsible for your money and what you do with it. And if you're gonna be fooled by these guys, then it is what it is. And I don't like it. I don't think it's ethical, the pick sellers that do these kinds of things. But there's a lot of industries where that could be you could say that that's the case. And I don't know. So yeah, I think people need to educate themselves better. I think there's more information out there than there ever has been in terms of figuring out, in terms of learning about this business. There was nothing when I was coming up. You just kind of learned on the fly. And now there's so much out there. There's so much you can read. There's not very many good Twitter spaces, in my opinion, but every once in a while, Flup and Storm will host one. So that's usually pretty educational. Like, you can listen to these. I wouldn't listen to any other ones, but at least from what I know. So yeah, but in general, I think too, like, if you're 23 years old, if I was 23 years old, I would post pics on Twitter and then I would try to turn it into a business. So I don't blame anybody for trying to earn by selling pics at a young age. And you know what? If you're going to scale eventually, if you're going to scale from a betting perspective, if you are actually a winner, you're eventually going to move on to betting anyhow. So I think it's a good way to get discovered for someone young to sell picks. It's just it's so hard to win. And I think that's where there's just separate. It's not black and white like everybody says. There's not every pick seller is bad, and not every pick seller is good, and 99+% are probably bad, but there are people out there that win. I buy a lot of picks. I know, like, and sometimes I just buy them because they're cheap, and I say maybe this person's gonna win, and I've barely found any that I think are winners. But if I pay $800 for a pick service for a year, and I find something that wins that I know is a winner, and I've done this long enough that I can analyze that, and I think be better suited to tell if a service is going to win long term. I found a few, and if I can bet those for $3,000 a game even, and I paid $800 for the year, and they win 10 units, like it's a no-brainer investment, right? Mm-hmm. So even if I find 1 out of 10 services that's good, and I don't bet them, I just buy it to see the plays. Mm-hmm. After I see, I throw 9 out of 10 out, and I wasted, well, let's say they're $1,000 a year each, so I wasted $9,000. But then I find one service that's good, and I make $50K from it. Then all of that's trial and error was worthwhile.
Right.
And I don't think there's many good, but you can't say there has to be somebody on Dub Club that's a long-term winner. There has to be, right?
Just because there's so many.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I get just variance will create if there's 10,000 services, not all 10, even if all 10,000 are bad services, some of them are going to win across a year. So that's where the experience and being able to tell if this is real or not. And I would never buy picks from somebody on Dub Club for NFL or NBA, but like if you're talking smaller markets and you can find a way to bet things where the line's not moving for a significant amount, I mean, there's a big edge in that kind of thing.
Yeah, fascinating. I know Mike Reardon on the internet, another pro bettor, has talked about how he buys picks as well because it's worth it to him, right? Like, if you do the math, you're betting enough.
If you know who BA Analytics, Porter, MLBK Psychic, whatever you want to call him, he made a comment on a space the one night that he was in I think he said he's in 50 Discords.
Wow.
Just to and not he's not betting them all, and these are like services he's buying, and he's like, I just want to know who has what, and if a number starts to move, I want to know who's moving it, and
Right,
so there's value in it beyond just you're gonna play every pick somebody sends
Sure.
out. Like being aware of, like I still get a comp to the RAS service from working there for so long and from leaving on good terms. I don't play it at release at all. But it's nice to know.
Sure.
It's nice to know, like, oh, this line moved. Oh, yeah. Here's why. So same with Dr. Bob's gonna move the numbers. So like I want to have a subscription to Dr. Bob because I want to know when I see that move if it was him, if it was RAS, or someone else that I'm not aware of.
So this is the point in the show where we reveal that Mike and I actually had a service, college football picks from 2014 through 2016. We were 53.6% over those 3 years, but struggled the last year.
Yeah, not good. I guess it's more than 52.4, so at least we got that going for us.
Right, but when you have a 62 and 65 season.
Oh, that's not good.
So we decided not to continue it. I think we could have made it work. I kind of wanted to work on the site instead of, I think I was the one that was kind of like, I think I didn't want to go forward. I think we could have, despite the bad year.
I think we could have too. We didn't have tons of subscribers or anything either. It just made more sense to bet. I mean, at least from my perspective. So that was part of it too. Yeah.
So 2016 was pretty interesting. Week 6 and 7, we went 4-13. I remember being like distraught when that last game kind of fell. Week 7, I think I was running a marathon the next day, and I was not sleeping well. We went 9-1 in week 11, and then we finished 2-6 in bowls.
Yeah, well,
that's how it goes, right?
That's how it goes, and I think it gets lost too. It's harder. I mean, people see like the RAS basketball record from a few years ago, and it wasn't good. But it is more challenging to win for other people than it is for yourself because you have to worry about timing and I know there's a lot of criticism of RAS, but I know all those guys. I'm friends with all those guys, and they do track fairly. And if a spread, if they're going to release -4, if half the market's -3.5 and half the market's -4, they're going to release -4 and count that as a record. So I mean, it's harder to win on a service in tracking than it is when you can bet any time and shop around and I mean maybe even manipulate the market. Like you're probably not going to manipulate the market for a release, but you can do that for if you're going to place a big bet, it might be advantageous to fake the market too.
Yeah. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. I feel like I've known you for a long time. I learned some things today about how you roll, which is awesome. I hope you guys learned stuff as well. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll be around for a little bit if you guys want to come up and talk.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host. Just a reminder, next week we will start the 2025 preview series. This is a daily series of podcasts. They're solo episodes with just me to get you ready for football season. Also, this podcast is supported by the Power Ranks Sports Betting newsletter. Looking for some action on any given weekend? This is the free service for you. 5 Nugget Saturday is my curated list of tips in analytics. To sign up, go to thepowerrank.com. That's ThePowerrank. Once again, that's thepowerrank.com. I will talk to you on Monday.